sharing my story. I have a little confession to make. See, I'm a bit of a ladies' man, if you know what I mean. That's why my girlfriend left me. She caught me cheating. We had a fight, but we broke up pretty okay, I think. I mean, we still talk. We're still buddies. We're just not a couple anymore. Smiley face. So I had no idea how I got to be alone 3 days before Valentine's Day. This made me a little sad as all my friends were already hooked up and had plans for that night. I was alone, not desperate, of course. I took it as an opportunity. I got my best clothes on. I made sure I looked my best. And, well, as best as I could, and went to a famous restaurant downtown. I was a predator, and I was looking for someone to spend this holiday with. I was cool. I arrived at the scene. There were both men and women, all single, all good looking, but I have standards. 2 women tried to make a move on me, but I rejected them, and then I saw her. She was beautiful beyond words. She was sitting alone at a table. Nobody even came close to her. I thought everyone was intimidated by her looks. I sat next to her and introduced myself. We talked. We had a drink. I asked her to come to my place. She agreed. We left holding our hands together. She was so sweet. She said the right words. People looked a little strange at me, but I brushed it off. I drove home. We talked some more. And I must end the story here, for although a womanizer, a bastard I am not, you understand what happened. I felt amazing. The next night, I had a nightmare. I ignored it. The woman said her name was Sarah. We decided to begin a relationship. Things started to go missing, started to get misplaced. Was Sarah a thief? Nah, I didn't think so. I became increasingly fascinated with her. But strange things began to happen other than this things going missing. The TV would turn on and off. I spent another night with Sarah. I had nightmares. But the next morning she was gone. I asked the concierge, yeah, I'm a wealthy guy, what can I say, if she saw her. But she denied seeing her. Nobody came or left my building. Maybe she left early before the concierge could arrive. Whatever, I brushed it off. What really set some alarm bells was the housekeeper's question, are you seeing someone? She was a nice old lady who really cared for me. What do you mean? I have a girlfriend. Her name is Sarah. The lady replied she hadn't seen her. Where was she? This gave me chills. I went to the restaurant. I had a friend who worked there as a waiter. I asked him about the night I went home with Sarah. He said it was a little weird the way I left, like I was leaving all alone and stuff. Alone? What the hell do you mean I left alone? I got to my apartment complex. I saw the cops in the ambulance. The concierge died of a heart attack. Something had frightened him to death. Sarah paid me a visit that night. When she heard about the concierge, she laughed. I was horrified. My heart pumped like crazy. Who was this Sarah? What was this Sarah? I found a small pocket Bible book and prayed. I prayed like hell in that huge bathroom. I said, Lord, show me the truth about this so-called Sarah. And that night we kissed. But I also had a vision. Sarah turned into a monster. I was scared as hell. I tried to run, but something slammed the door in my face. Sarah made a knife float into her hands. She slashed at me. Luckily, I dodged tried hitting her, but my fists went through her like thin air. Then Sarah pushed me down the stairs. I can't remember what happened next. When I woke up, I was sitting with a knife in my hands and a few cops were pointing their guns at me. I was told at the precinct that I tried to kill the housekeeper, thrown in jail, and Sarah came into my cell and told me she can set me free. She said, I owe her. What do you mean I owe you? I called the guard and I said all the right things. Like I wasn't even speaking, Sarah was speaking through me. The guard let me go. I convinced him I would pay for my release at a later date. At home, Sarah told me I had to drive to the restaurant I met her and kill everyone there, a revenge for her murder some 50 years ago. A slaughter that would ensure enough negative energy for a dark portal. She was just planting thoughts inside my head. Despite not knowing what Sarah was, I felt strangely in love with her. Sarah had a way with the words. Yes, she did. I called my ex-girlfriend. She laughed at me, asked me how I got along with Sarah. This was all her revenge. She wished me a happy Valentine. Sarah walked towards me and then wanted to turn me into a Valentine's slaughter. The restaurant would be full of people, full of lovers. Sarah and I both knew that. Sarah made me sleep. When I woke up, it was midday. I was in a scrapyard. I was drawn to a certain car, an old, like Prohibition-era old car. I found in its trunk a Tommy gun and a few boxes of ammo. I saw a ghost, but soon he faded. Sarah told me she chased him off. It was a mobster. He tried to actually warn me. But it was time. Sarah told me to drive. We were to reach the target area soon. But no, I wouldn't do that. I drove like crazy. Sarah kissed me and told me we'd be together forever. Admittedly, I was seduced for a few moments that the thought of my deeds were not so bad. After all, did I know these people? But I forgot these feelings with all my might. I tried to fight them off. I tried to get rid of them, forget them, let them roll off my shoulder, but no, I couldn't. I wouldn't kill for love. I will find a real woman, not that creature. Sarah tried to possess me. We fought over the steering wheel. We were getting close to the restaurant. Sarah planted more thoughts inside of my mind. I looked at her and was fascinated by her face, by her beauty, by those sea blue eyes. If I kill them all, I could be happy with her forever. She will make me very happy. She is not like any other woman. I walked as if I was hypnotized, picking up the Tommy gun in my hand. The restaurant full of people, couples of all ages. I took the vantage point and loaded my weapon. But no, I prayed and turned right back and walked to my car. Sarah forced me to stumble upon a rock. The weapon just glided on the ground and next to my hands. I got to my feet and Sarah kissed me. I took the weapon and approached the restaurant. I was never so in love. Anybody could see that. Nobody loved me as much as Sarah loved me. I struggled to throw away the Tommy gun as I got closer, and then I fled to the car. I entered it. So did Sarah. I saw her on the back seat. She looked scary as hell. She didn't look like the beautiful woman I had fallen in love with. slammed into the restaurant's wooden fence. I was hurt, lost consciousness. I woke up in a hospital. Next to me, I saw a priest. He also had some health problems. I told him what happened. He agreed to help. The next day, he came to my house. Sarah put up a ferocious fight by making the furniture move, the books fly off the shelf, knives come out of the kitchen, plates fall out up the cabinet. She appeared to me and we kissed again. It was those lips that drew me in, the taste of her saliva on my mouth, how she tasted, how she felt. That's what pulled me in. She made me try to get the priest to leave. I had a choice. I fought my feelings. These horrid feelings were not real. She manipulated me. Sarah manipulated me. I continued the ceremony, and in the end, we banished Sarah. The experience changed me. I got my shit together. I became more serious. I found myself a beautiful, nice, kind woman shortly after and settled down. We got married, spent wonderful moments together, so in love with each other. I love my wife, and I will never cheat on her. Other women no longer interest me, which is fine and good because my life is what I want it to be. Anything without Sarah. However, sometimes late at night, Sarah visits me in my dreams. She whispers in my ear we can still be together, and if I want that too, I have to carry on her Valentine's Day murderous plot. Sarah is beautiful beyond words. She told me she loves me. Will I ever escape her poisonous charms, or will one day she managed to break my town believed in Valentine's Day. Well, in a Valentine's Day monster. By 02321. I've been single my entire life. I don't mind it at all. It's just how I've always been. You know, my freedom, do what I want, not have anybody bossing me around. And yet, I still buy Valentine's Day candy and a card every single year. That simple thing saved my life. I moved to a small town right before starting high school. You see, it was difficult trying to make new friends and adjusting to an entirely new place at the same time. By the time February rolled around, I was finally feeling as if I'd gotten into the groove of things. I had only made a handful of friends, and to my shock, the first time I was ever asked out on a date was a week before Valentine's Day. Can you believe it? I felt awkward going out with a girl who I'd never spoken with before, so I turned her down. She got pissed, claiming she had other options and was just being nice. That might have been the case, but her extreme reaction confused me, as I think it would confuse anybody in their right mind. When I was able to, I asked my friend Travis about it. Oh yeah, you die if you're single on Valentine's Day, get your heart ripped out and everything, so find a girlfriend for the day, he explained. I scoffed at the idea. Come on, you don't expect me to believe that, do you? I asked, thinking he was just pulling a joke on the new kid in town. He acted as if he was just giving me some facts. He was looking at me as if I was crazy for not knowing about getting a date or dying. Like, what in the hell? So I told him just that. I'm like, you're crazy. This was before everyone had a cell phone in their pocket, so I could not look up deaths of people missing their hearts right then and there. I made a note to research it later so I could call him out on his urban legend, because that's what I believed it was. I just decided, and I'm like, I crossed my arms, still not buying what he was saying. That is so ridiculous. Are you saying what? Someone knows you are single and kills you? I pressed. A person doesn't do it. Some sort of thing does it. That was my dog. Apparently not agreeing with what I'm talking about. No one has lived after seeing it, but people say they heard drums and then found someone without their heart inside their body, their chest cavity ripped wide open. Travis was again looking at me as if I should have already known this. Are you serious? A Valentine's Day monster? Are you kidding? Really? Well, Christmas has Santa and there is an Easter bunny, so why can't Valentine's Day have something? Well, I thought Valentine's Day was supposed to be about love and not ripping somebody's heart out of their chest and finding them dead on the side of the road, or in the forest or the woods or the town next by or nearby or whatever the hell you're saying. For the next 10 minutes, I just kept roasting his idea and believed in the Valentine's Day monster. At least he could take it all as a joke, even if he didn't believe the murders were real. He wasn't positive a monster was doing it, but couldn't offer up any other reason behind the mysterious deaths. He looked at me dead in the face and said he wasn't risking it. He already had a date lined up with the girl he didn't even like. I still thought the idea was dumb. The rest of the school didn't share my outlook. As the days slowly got closer and closer to the fated day, the students got paired up with each other, some done out of safety, others using the monster as an excuse to finally ask out the man or woman of their dreams. You know how kids are. I received a few pity offers, but I refused all of them as an act of rebellion against this stupid small-town tradition. I just watched as everyone started dating in fear of death. This was absurdity. The stores sold out of candy and cards pretty quick. Normally, everywhere would be flooded with red and pink products. The shelves were barren a few days before February 14th. Now, I refused to accept any offers, and I didn't plan on asking somebody out either. It's not my style. Whatever, it's not my thing. It's not in me just to date somebody because I'm afraid of dying. That's ridiculous. I didn't plan on asking someone out either. So the school offered a program where you could buy sweetheart candies to be delivered to class for a small fee. I didn't mind getting my new friends one each, all while making up silly names to put on the card of who they would receive it from. It was the only thing I related to. The whole day I gave into it, aside from buying a box of chocolates for myself. The chocolates were just a normal box of assorted types from the grocery store I'd gotten with some money made from doing chores. When I bought them, the cashier left a heart-shaped sticker on the box without my permission. A small one for someone to write who the box was meant for. With how crazy this town was over the holiday, I didn't blame her. By that time, I'd been so overexposed to anything Valentine related, just seeing the sticker put me off eating the chocolates. I shoved them in my backpack to forget about them until the 14th was over. I really wish I had taken the entire thing a bit more seriously, because it wasn't until the night before Valentine's Day that I finally looked up the murders. They were all true. Each and every one of them. Dread started to form sat in shock after finding out it was true. My father finally got me from school, but told me I needed to walk home the next day. I sat in the car silently debating on what I should actually do. He just chalked up my distressed state as normal teenage behavior. I didn't sleep that night. I tried thinking of names of students that might not have a date, all while knowing it was absolutely useless. When the clock turned midnight and it was officially the 14th, I nearly had a panic attack, convinced the monster or thing would swoop in to take my heart from my body. The only way I got through that night without a mental breakdown was to shift my train of thought back to what it was before looking up the murders. A Valentine's Day murder, maybe, but a Valentine's Day monster was stupid. It wasn't real. Some heartless store manager saw the murders and made up the story to sell more products through fear. That was it. It had to be. It just had to be it. I remained awake all night. In the morning, my mother noticed how I looked and offered to let me stay home. I absolutely refused, secretly hoping I could find a date if I went to school. The place was abuzz with new couples and gifts exchanges. As I walked down the hallway, a few students looked at me with pity in their eyes. Most knew my single stance and how I would be the monster's top choice. But I couldn't be the only one single in this town or in the nearby towns. I mean, if it was real at all. I mean, come on, no one went near me that day if they could help it. My new friends awkwardly tried to find reasons to rush off if I tried talking to them. This was insanity. All of them having temporary new girlfriends gave them a good enough reason to be left out. My candy heart prank wasn't funny. Some thought it was, but I couldn't find the humor in anything that day. Instead, I spent it looking over my shoulder, expecting to hear drums at any second. The final bell rang, and Travis was brave enough to walk over to me for a chat. I think he thought he was going to be having our last conversation. The idea got him motivated enough to walk over, but not to find the words. Do you want to come over? I'm going out today, but maybe we can hang out beforehand. There's a really good show, and he trailed off, feeling awkward. It's fine. I'm just gonna chill at my house. My parents are going out and won't be home until after dinner, so I have the entire place to myself, which never happens. Then finally, thank God they finally think I'm old enough to be trusted to be left home alone, I explained, determined to still not believe in this nonsense, even though I was freaking terrified. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared shitless. Travis nodded, looking pale. He wasn't brave enough to press me on hanging out. After all, he was certain I was going to expire that night. He didn't want to be around to see it. Man, I'll talk to you tomorrow, I said, and gave him a shaky wave. He gave one back and started to hurry over to his new girlfriend. When you're a teenager, everything is a big deal. As I walked away from school towards home, I felt like I was walking towards my own death. The sky was overcast. It made me feel even more gloomy. I kept mocking myself for my mood as I walked along the neighborhoods that had become familiar to me over the past few months. Finally, I walked past a small rock and I started to kick it. As I walked, trying to take my mind going down the street, the music went with it, but a hint of the thud remained. I immediately stopped, confused on why I could still hear the sound if the car was so far away from me. When it finally turned out of sight, I realized the car wasn't the source of the noise at all. My heart started to beat so fast and hard it matched the thudding rhythm that I could swear was getting closer and closer to me. I didn't look behind me or even get angry at myself for getting scared. I just ran down the street. I should have run up to the one of the houses asking for help. I was so frightened, nothing rational came to mind. I ran like crazy all while that beating followed. I wished this was a prank but didn't stop running to find out. My mind was unable to work as my lungs burned from the mad dash. For a moment I thought I was losing whatever was chasing me. I stumbled, nearly falling over a crooked sidewalk square in the front of my house. I couldn't tell how close the thumping sound was over my own heartbeat. Sweat poured down my face. I felt faint. Slammed into my front door, banging on it before I remembered. My parents were out. Oh, I nearly screamed in frustration. The door was locked and my keys were buried under the mounds of books inside my backpack. That thudding sound was all I heard. So close, rumbling in my chest. My hand shook as I fumbled to get the zipper open. Scared to death and couldn't keep my eyes open. Squeezing them shut, I felt around in my bag for my key. My hand brushed against it when a puff of wind came across my face. I smelled something sweet, and then the wind came again. To my horror, my mind glued into the fact it wasn't the wind, but something breathing on my face. It was too late. Even if I got my key, I could not unlock the door before whatever brought the heart-thumping sound took my heart too. I refused to open my eyes to see the monster I know now to be real. I love the sound of your heart. It's a shame it's alone. Let me add it to the others. The voice that spoke wasn't some prank, twisted beyond anything a human could make. My mind racing, I felt a sharp tip of a claw poke my chest, leaving a small cut through my shirt. A cruel laugh came as I whimpered in fear, my hand still in my backpack. I felt something that was not my books or my house key. A crazy idea had come to mind. It was either that or die right there. I grabbed hold of the only thing I could think of. Yanking the box of chocolates from my bag, I held it out to the monster. I still refused to look at. My voice strained and shaking. I asked it a question I prayed would save my life. Will you be my Valentine this year? My heart nearly beat out of my chest. Opening my eyes, a crack, I could see the box in my hand, but not the creature that brought along countless heartbeats that mixed in with my own. I should have died that day. Instead of clawing out my heart, the twisted hand with the razor-sharp nails reached out and took the box. I forced my eyes shut. My entire body was shaking. Something brushed my face, causing me to tense up so much that all my muscles hurt. The clawed finger brushed some hair from my face, and another cruel laugh. What a cute child you are. I'll accept this gift this year, but someday I will be back to claim actually open my eyes. Nothing was on the front step. I was alone. If it wasn't for the rip in my shirt, I would have thought the whole thing came about due to stress and lack of sleep. I did not tell anybody what happened. I mean, who would believe me anyway? I went to school for the first half of the day on the 15th. I had barely slept for 2 days and needed to take the rest of the day off. But I didn't want my friends to think I died. All of them looked shocked when I walked through the doors alive. I said, I guess I just got lucky. The school moved on. The short-lived relationship caused by the day fizzled out. As time crept by, I started to dread knowing Valentine's Day was coming yet again. I bought more candy, roses, and a card expecting a visit from a monster. I should have just gone along and dated someone, but somehow the idea of it was more stressful than dealing with that creature who wanted to tear my heart out. I anticipated and feared Valentine's Day only to have nothing happen. Nothing. Nothing happens beside the facts that the gifts I addressed to the creature go missing overnight on Valentine's. As the years carried on, I kept buying different gifts with the same result. As I've gotten older, I've heard those terrible heartbeats faintly on Valentine's Day. Each year the sound gets louder. I think this year is finally going to be when the monster shows itself. Again, just asking someone out may save my life, but I think if the monster does show up, I'll ask it the question yet again. But this time I will keep my eyes open, open, open. A girl asked me out for Valentine's Day. Verdify or no sleep. If you still haven't told me why you asked me out for Valentine's Day, I reminded Carrie. Don't worry, she smirked. If you haven't figured it out by the end of the night, I will tell you. Her gloved fingers slid between mine and she gave my hand a little squeeze. I couldn't believe this was happening. I had a crush on Carrie since the moment we met. Even though she'd shown up at my apartment with a guy I couldn't stand. Johnny was my roommate's best friend. He and his crew only ever showed up after midnight, drunk, high, and looking for trouble. Things were always broken, missing, or whatever in the morning, but my roommate Nate refused to control his friends. The night I met Carrie, I woke to the sound of drunken giggles and the apartment door slamming open. What are you just standing out there for? A slurred voice shouted. Come on in, it's cold. I groaned, Johnny. In the main room, I could see my roommate Nate leaning boozily against the wall. A big blonde girl tried to dance on our coffee table and kicked a hole in it. Meanwhile, Johnny was ranting about a band he hated and preparing a line of coke on the handheld mirror. Blood rushed to my head. I was shoving my way forward towards him before I had time to think. My parents had struggled with addiction all their lives, and a dirty needle had been my mother's death sentence. I didn't want to see that stuff, didn't want it in my home where I lived. Put that shit away, get it out of here, I snapped. Come on, man, it's my party fuel. Don't like it, go back to bed, Johnny sneered. A short girl with frizzy brown hair watched me carefully. It's his house, Johnny, his rules. The girl rolled her eyes. Don't like it. Get your own damn place instead of mooching off Nate all the time. Johnny turned red and glared at me, but he was also putting the coke away. Carrie introduced herself, but I can't remember anything about the conversation. I was too focused on her dark, beautiful hazel eyes. My heart was racing in my chest. After the party, she did something none of Johnny's friends had ever done. She stayed to help to clean up. By the way, Carrie asked Surprisingly, the skating rink was packed with couples. Some twirled, others stumbled, but as we laced up our skates, Carrie pointed to a young man and a 5-year-old child. "Look at those two. What do you see?" she whispered to me. A single dad, I guess." I grasped for more details. The handsome young man held the boy's hand, teaching him. "They're both struggling, so I guess it's their first time here. And judging from the way he keeps looking around and checking his watch, he probably is meeting somebody here." "You notice things?" Carrie raised an eyebrow, impressed. "That's one of the things I like about you. Keep watching." We made our way onto the ice. I did my best to keep an eye on the pair in the sea of skaters. A strikingly beautiful woman with raven hair stepped effortlessly onto the ice, smiling as she went. The man grinned and waved. His date was here. He embraced her, but his boy tried to pull away. The kid skated away, looking over his shoulder with wide-eyed fear. His father and the new date followed. The man barely seemed to notice his son. He just stared into the woman's eyes dreamily and allowed her to lead him around the ice. I had to admit I understood the feeling. I couldn't say exactly what it was that made the raven-haired woman so special, but it was hard to look away from her. She twirled her date gracefully and pressed him against the rink barrier. Leaning in close, she whispered something into his ear. He lay back and closed his eyes, savoring it, like he couldn't believe his luck. Meanwhile, the boy was running out of energy. He grabbed his knees, panting, and the raven-haired woman shot across the ice towards him like a swooping owl. An expert skater, she clamped a hand over his mouth with one hand and guided him to the exit with the other. It was over before I could react, before I even realized what was going on. A sea of happy couples blocked my path to the door. The boy's father rubbed his eyes, glancing round like a man waking from sleep. Then the panic set in. He stumbled around the ice, grabbing people, asking if they'd seen his son. Carrie tugged my hand gently, urging me to follow, but the time was reached the back lobby and clumsily pulled off our skates. I knew that it was already too late. The raven-haired woman and the boy were long gone. I stared, slack-jawed, as the man's babbling attempted to explain what happened to the rink attendant. Carrie tugged my hand. "We should go." "You knew?" In the snowy darkness of the parking lot, I confronted Carrie. "How?" She smirked and kept walking. "Hey," I shouted. "The man's son could be in danger. What's going on?" "Like I said, you notice things. I'm confident you'll figure it out." Carrie looked up into the cloudy night sky and sighed, an unreadable expression on her face. "But first, you sound like you need a drink. I know a club downtown. XXY, read the pink and purple neon letters above the solid metal door. I'd never heard of this place or even seen this street before. But then I'd not been to a club since college. I really hoped Carrie wouldn't expect me to dance." A burly white guy in a skin-tight black t-shirt nodded to Carrie and opened a solid metal door. But a feeling of foreboding filled me as I looked down the dark staircase on the other side. How much did I really know about her? About Carrie, that is. Did I really want to go down there with a girl I'd known only for a few hours? With a girl who watched a live kidnapping and done nothing to stop it, but knew that it was going to happen? With the glowing red lights, fog machine, and writhing shapes, the club reminded me of hell. The heat from so many dancing bodies made it about as warm, too. We squeezed our way through the sweaty crowd to the bar, where Carrie gestured to a guy in a leather vest and chaps who looked like a supermodel. Moments later, he slid an old-fashioned over to me. How had she known it was was my favorite drink. I reached for my wallet, but Carrie shook her head. Do you come here often? I shouted lamely over the pounding music. Almost never, Carrie laughed, but there's something that I want you to see. I groaned inwardly. Not again. Carrie gently touched my wrist. She pointed to a tall, bald African man in a suit. His hollow eyes were locked on a skinny blonde guy wearing a mesh t-shirt. The college kid was clearly hopped up on the Red Bull vodka drinks that were the club's specialty, dancing his head off in the heart of the crowd. As the hollow-eyed man moved towards him, I realized that the man didn't just have a sunken face. His eye sockets were completely empty, with nothing inside of them but hungry darkness. The crowd parted for him. People seemed unconsciously repulsed by the gaunt figure, even though I had the strangest feeling that they couldn't even see him. The hollow-eyed man halted just in front of the blonde dancer, and when he did, the young man froze. In fact, everyone froze. From the bartender to the raving crowd, all of their heads dropped to their chests just as though they'd fallen asleep, standing up. Deafening dance music boomed from the speakers for a completely stand-still and silent crowd. The hollow-eyed man lifted the blonde dancer's chin. Their lips clamped together in a violent kiss. The dancer's throat grew swollen, bulging as the hollow-eyed man sucked the life from him. I tried to move but couldn't. I was just as paralyzed as everyone else. Felt like an eternity before the dancer crumbled to the ground, a hollow sack of skin and bones. Beneath his mesh t-shirt he had starved look of a death camp victim. The hollow-eyed man scanned the room, apparently satisfied for now. To my surprise and terror, he nodded in our direction before walking. No, drifting up the stairs. The metal door slammed shut, and every head in the club snapped up at once. People blinked, confused, and resumed dancing, oblivious to the grotesque sight on the floor. Carrie took her fingers off my wrist and gave me a look I recognized. We should go, and I'm right, I suggested, unable to control the shaking in my voice. Carrie nodded and led me upstairs through the oblivious crowd. Outside, I lost it. Okay, I don't know what this is, but it is not a date. Huh? Carrie put a fist on her hip. I thought for sure you would have pieced everything together by now. This isn't funny, I shouted. People are getting hurt. What the hell was that thing? Come with me to one last place. Carrie grabbed my hand with both of hers. If you still don't understand why I'm doing this, I'll tell you after. I promise. I promise. Besides, aren't you hungry? Well, actually, I was starving, but it was after 2 a.m. and the roads were slick with ice. Where the hell was she going? What the hell was going to be open at this time of night? 30 minutes later, Carrie watched me wolf down my syrupy waffles and cheesy hash browns with a bemused expression on her face. JodiAsmr, show me at a pancake house, I asked through a mouthful of food. I just wanted you to eat a nice meal so you don't start feeling faint. Don't you believe me? I shook my head. I just saw a guy get his guts sucked out. He was a goddamn crazy straw. I'm not sure what to believe anymore. Good, that means you're getting closer to the truth. Come to the bathroom with me. What? Here now? I blushed, sure that someone would see when Carrie yanked me by the collar through the door of the men's room. There was no one standing at the 3 sticky urinals or sitting in either of the 2 stalls. No one I could see anyway. Carrie took me into the smaller stall, locked the door, and then pulled me up so we were both standing on the toilet lid. There was barely enough room on the white plastic for both of us. I could feel our chests pressed together, her fingers on my back. The restroom door flew open and a guy in dirty black boots staggered in. Dumb slut, he moaned to himself as he struggled to find a zipper. I spent like $30 on her tonight. She owes me. the stall door, I could see where the drunk braced himself against a urinal. It was Johnny. From where he stood pissing, he couldn't see the pale, naked, genderless figure that was crawling out of the ceiling tile and down the wall. Gary covered my mouth a split second before I screamed. The pale thing approached Johnny silently from behind until his gnarled toes were practically touching his heels. Oblivious, Johnny zipped up. Before he could turn around, the pale thing stepped into him. Johnny's clothes and skin yielded like foam as it slipped on his flesh, as a pajama onesie would do. His face shifted from shock to agony and finally to horror before finally settling into an expression of fearless calm. The new Johnny paused in front of the mirror, trying out his hands and fingers like stiff new gloves. Those hands combed a part into Johnny's usually unruly hair, then caressed his chest with the glee of long, caged animal finally set free. Every trace of drunkenness was gone. The door slammed shut as a shiny new Johnny left the restroom with swift, professional strides. "What in the holy fuck?" I mouthed to Kyrie. She jumped gracefully down the toilet, unlocked the door, and motioned for me to follow. There's things like that everywhere, aren't there? I stammered. We just don't notice them. Especially tonight. Gary nodded. All the eager couples, the first dates, the hookups, the alcohol, and loneliness. Valentine's Day is a feast for creatures like these. You said that there was nothing worse than being alone on Valentine's Day. I wanted to show you that you were wrong and to protect you if you did go out. But why? When you yelled at Johnny that night, I could tell that you'd lost someone special to addiction. Gary rolled up her long sleeves. The track marks were too obvious. I couldn't stop myself from reaching out to touch them. I did too, Kyrie went on. Myself. Two horrible truths struck me at once. There was no pulse in the veins beneath my fingertips, and according to the mirror across from us, I was alone in the men's room. I was already on my way out from an OD when my sire sunk her fangs into my neck. It's a shame. If we'd met when I was still alive, we might have been very happy together. I backed away until my back pressed against the cold tile wall. I hope you heed my warning when I tell you to hurry home, and that you remember this lesson for the next year. Kyrie smiled. The night is young, you see, and I still